Hello Everpony, Prince Alagorn of Aquilonia here, and it's time once again to get back into the swing of things. Like I said in that recent update, I'm not going to overtax myself this season by trying to review every episode. I'm going to be making videos about the stuff I feel I got something to talk about, instead of trying to force myself to talk about things that may not provide much material. Luckily, as is always the case, this premiere provides a lot to talk about. Actually, it provides too much. There's too much here for me to feel that a simple 15 to 20 minute review will actually be able to cover all of it in the detail that I'd like to. An entire episode could be devoted to the Starlight and Sunburst plot. Must say though, I'm glad that they addressed this. Hell, 2 minutes could probably be devoted to Starlight and Spike's interactions. Does anyone else especially love the scene where Starlight pulls out some popcorn and demands Spike tell her the story of how he became the hero of the Crystal Empire? Because I thought that was fucking adorable. Some time could be spent on Twilight's initial discomfort at the beginning of the episode. Hell, that right there, combining all of it, means that 10 minutes alone could go just to Starlight's subplot. And that's what it is. It's a side plot. Then there's the crystalling itself. Then there's Shining Armor's unraveling. Then, while it's not enough for an actual separate episode, there's the fact that we got to hear Twilight Velvet and Nightlight speak for the first time, which was a pretty big moment. Then an entire episode could be spent on the whole thing with the Crystal Heart. And if you've seen the episode, you already know what I'm talking about. And if not, then this is something I'm not going to spoil for you. But let's just say that there's some things that kind of question and bring the entire season 3 premiere, the necessity of it, into question. Because something big happens in this episode in relation to the MacGuffin from that episode. From the Crystal Empire Parts 1 and 2. Yeah, there's just too much here to talk about. Instead, I want to focus this video on responding to some specific criticism I've seen come across my Tumblr in regard to the episode. And that's that the episode ruins the lore and invalidates the journal of the two sisters. No, you're wrong. Yes, Haber could have made more clear what I think his intentions were, but I believe your interpretation of Celestia's lines are completely and totally bunk. And I'll explain why, using the very thing you claim to be invalidated. Let's start with the line itself. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something along the lines of, "Nothing like this has ever happened in Equestria before. Even we do not understand it." Okay, let's deal with the first part, because this is most important. Celestia is saying that a natural-born alicorn is something that has never happened in Equestria before. Notice where I put my emphasis. Now, let's look at the journal. Journal basically says that alicorns were the native race of the Canterlot Hills. It also states that Starswirl himself is the one that chose Celestia and Luna to be the princesses after the other 3 tribes settled after Hearthswarming, because the tribes believed that there should be an impartial central authority to serve as an arbiter of disputes among the tribes. And they believed the alicorns were the right fit because they have elements of all 3 tribes in them. Starswirl seems to have picked Celestia and Luna because he could sense the magic of the unicorns to move the celestial bodies was weakening, and could also sense the elemental connections Luna and Celestia have with the moon and the sun respectively. And while the book does not state it outright, it seems like a safe bet that Celestia and Luna were the last natural-born alicorns. I can only speculate what happened to the alicorn race after Celestia and Luna's ascension, and I'll give some theories on that at the end, But the point is that Celestia and Luna were the last natural births for the Alicorn race. So what does this mean? It means that Celestia and Luna were born before the founding of Equestria proper. They were the last natural Alicorn births, and those occurred before Hearthwarming. So, of course, Flurry Heart is something Equestria has never seen before. The last time this happened, there was no Equestria. Now, let's tackle the second part. Of course, Celestia and Luna don't even understand it. Luna spent 1,000 years trapped in the moon and only just recently came back. She has not had time to meet a special sun pony, let alone try to procreate. As for Celestia, she may very well have. She had 1,000+ years to do so, and that's a very long time to remain chaste. In her past, Celestia could have taken lovers before, and nothing ever resulted from it. No foals of her own, which is why as soon as Cadence made her artificial ascendancy, Celestia adopted her as a niece. Of course, she could have simply chosen to remain chaste that whole time, but come on! Even Elizabeth I, the so-called Virgin Queen, was not a virgin in the modern sense. She took lovers during her reign, and we even have some very well-crafted love poems from Elizabeth herself to back this up. But she just simply never married, making her a virgin in the old sense, an unmarried and hence independent woman. But she certainly was no virgin in the modern sense, and Elizabeth only ruled for a few decades. Celestia's had centuries. To never know a stallion's touch that entire time? That's just stretching my suspension of disbelief there. Now, there is a slight problem here in that Celestia seems to forget that Cadence is not like her. She is a made Alicorn, not a natural-born one. But then, Cadence has been a part of her life, both living under her roof and as an adopted relative, for so long that I can forgive her for basically treating Cadence like blood. So with all this said, I would say that no, this episode does not damage the lore, damage the journal, or belittle Amy Keating Rogers' work. If anything, that work seems to support this episode. The issue is more with Josh Haber's scripting. It's clear he set out to expand on the lore, not destroy it. And I'm sure hurting Amy's work was the last thing from his mind. The issue is that he wrote these lines seemingly under the impression that something along my line of reasoning would be the only way to interpret them. That's clearly not the case, as if it were, I wouldn't be having to do this video to begin with. Josh should have made his intentions more clear. So then, what exactly does this mean? What does Flurry Heart mean for Equestria moving forward? Simple. Celestia and Luna still remain the last of their race. They are still the last natural-born Alicorns from the pre-Equestrian era. The original line ends with them. But with Flurry Heart, we have the foundation of a new race of natural-born Alicorns. Not a genetic descendant of the original, but a spiritual one. That's the meaning of Flurry Heart. It also means that whenever Twilight decides to settle down, if it's with a male and she conceives, her foal will probably be part of this new race as well. That just begs one last question. Whatever did happen to the original Alicorn race? This is something that I don't think we're going to get an answer to in the show itself. Because, yeah, we're talking about the extinction of semi-divine beings. Who even knows what the hell caused that to happen? I think it might just be more of a case that Alicorns, as I think I've stated before, aren't immortal. I just think that they're very, very, very long-lived. So it's possible that they just simply died out over time. But I do have a couple of theories on why they stopped being able to reproduce, which is the most important thing when it comes to the questions that I'm dealing with in this video. My first one for a long time has been that the other alicorns just intermarried with the other tribes. That over time the bloodline has just diluted itself out. It's like claiming that you're 1/64th Cherokee or something like that. There's possibly millions of ponies out there with alicorn blood in them, but it's to such a minute level and has so little bearing on any noticeable features or abilities that they might as well not even claim it. If Luna and Celestia are the last of their kind, though, and they were born prior to hearthwarming, that theory is a lot more shaky than it used to be. Another theory still allows the first one to work, but only just. That one is that alicornism is a secondary genetic trait. But even this one doesn't work right if we assume that Luna and Celestia are the last alicorns, and we know they were born prior to hearthwarming. Instead, it seems more likely that the reason they're the last, and that they can't conceive, even if they wanted to, is something much more catastrophic. I'm now of the belief that it's likely that there's either a mutation in the alicorn genome that, over the course of many generations, finally became dominant enough to render the race infertile, or perhaps some kind of damaging infection ravaged Celestia and Luna's parents' generation that did the same kind of thing to their children. That's all I have for today. Hopefully now, all those people that think this episode ruined the lore, or even worse, the trolls trying to use the episode as a gotcha at Inkros, seriously, she's 16, leave her the fuck alone, will finally let up. Nothing in here, in fact, damages anything. It all still works within the framework of the journal, and again, if anything, the journal itself seems to support it. Until next time.